Namaskar. As you know, whenever we start any yogic program or yogic lecture, we start it with prayer. Similarly, we shall be reciting a prayer first of all, and the prayer is from Upanishad. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Open your eyes. As you know, that the topic today given to me is on history of yoga as well as special features of Hatha Yoga. Well, though it is written history of Hatha Yoga, I would take it first as history of yoga. And before we come into the inquiry of what is the history, let us try to understand what yoga means or yoga stands for. In order to understand it, it is necessary that we know its derivative meaning. As you know that the word yoga is derived from root use and with certain pratyay and some grammatical rules, use transforms or changes into yoga. It may be because of the ghaya pratyay or maybe because of the gate nit and chajoku gurnyato and all these things. It does not matter much. But what matters is that there are two meanings that have been assigned to it. And that is yoga samadhi or yuj samadho or yoga sanyoge or yuj sanyoge. So one meaning means identifying oneself with the Supreme Self or having a balanced state of mind. It is called samadhi. But when you identify yourself with the Supreme Self, it is a type of union. So balanced state of mind is also yoga, and also when you can or you get ability to become one with the Supreme, it is also yoga. So union and integration of personality, both are the meaning of yoga. Well, in what manner this word yoga has been used by Patanjali? You know that Patanjali has not used the word in the meaning of union. On the contrary, he uses the concept in such a way that yoga stands for separation and not for union. And separation of what? Separation from which? And this is, according to the Sankhya philosophy, you may be knowing that there are two ultimate principles. They are known as Purusha and Prakriti. They also stand for conscious principle and unconscious principle. They also stand for Jad and Chetan. Now, this particular yoga that Patanjali has given stands for that a person or the Jada principle or unconscious principle and conscious principle have identified themselves. No, it is not the problem with the unconscious principle which has identified, but actually conscious principle has identified with the unconscious principle. And it is because of that identification of conscious principle with that of the unconscious principle, the conscious principle has to undergo lot of pain and suffering. Now, pain and suffering is not because only the identification. This identification leads one to the concept of me and mine. And wherever the concept of me and mine comes, you know that no mine or no me is permanent, and since you have to lose it, you get pain. And that is the reason that this particular yoga believes in that do not identify with the unconscious principle. On the contrary, try to be separated from the unconscious principle. And if you are able to separate yourself from the unconscious principle, undoubtedly you will be free from pain and suffering. And this is the concept of yoga as the highest goal, that is known as, especially in the Gita, in the words of Gita, Dukkha Sanyoga Viyogo Yoga Uchyate. The union of dukkha, when you can separate yourself from the dukkha, is the yoga. So separation of the principle, the conscious principle, from that of the pain and suffering is yoga. So ultimately, the idea is that yoga is a method, is a means that can make you or that can help you in separating yourself from that of the pain, and this is the goal of yoga. Well, Patanjali's concept of Purusha and Prakriti is one. It is not that everybody has accepted it. Some people have not accepted this concept of separation. They believe in the union also, and that is because they say that separation doesn't give a concept of positive understanding. It is a type of negative understanding. And that negative understanding is not sufficient and not giving me a complete satisfaction unless the conscious principle becomes one with the supreme conscious principle, which we find in the Vedanta principle. And therefore, from that point, it is said that the practice of yoga, especially the Hatha Yoga, leads one to realize oneself, separate from the unconscious principle, and become one with the supreme conscious principle. And that is what is the concept of yoga according to Yoga Vasishtha. It says Sanjogo Yoga Ityukto. Sanjog is said to be the yoga. Sanjogo Yoga Ityukto Jivatma Paramatmano. The individual self and supreme self, when they become united, it is called yoga. But in modern times, you know that people are more interested in the physical aspect of the practice. They are least interested in what is the spiritual goal and how the individual self becomes united with the supreme soul, because its purpose has been reduced, limited. And therefore, they think that yoga is only for the physical purpose. And from that point of view, that is why the reason is that Hatha Yoga has been promoted maximum, because they consider that Hatha Yoga is for the sake of the physical purpose. They say that Hatha means physical and Yoga means the goal. So yoga through physical. But if they give the meaning yoga through physical, that is also a very good thing. At least they have considered the yoga also, that through the physical aspect you can reach to yoga. But you know, in modern times it has been further reduced and it is considered that yoga for physical. This Hatha Yoga is only for the physical purpose. It has no spiritual purpose. That is what is the most misconception, we can say, that has developed in the yogic world and the people and the practitioners of yoga. It is very vast literature, and it is very difficult to define what yoga is. either Hatha Yoga or yoga. In both way, it is very difficult to define Hatha Yoga. You know that very, very popular definition of Hatha Yoga is said to be Hakarah Ketitah Surya, Thakaras Chandra Uchyate, Surya Chandra Masur Yogar, Hatha Yogo Nigadyate. You know, the word Hatha has got various meanings. Hatha also means to pressurize, to get to stubborn demand or whatever. As you might be knowing in Hindi, there is saying that Bal Hat, Raj Hat, Triya Hat, the stubborn demand made by a child, made by a lady, or made by the kings. These are so stubborn that they do not withdraw or do not compromise with anything less than that. But Hatha as such do not have that meaning. In Hatha Yoga, the word Hatha stands for a very, very technical term. Hatha is made up of two letters, but actually they are two words, Ha and Tha. Just now the verse that I have read, it is available in Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. And it says that Ha stands for sun and Tha stands for moon. And when there is union of this sun and moon, then it is called Hatha Yoga. The question arises how this union will be possible. Actually speaking, Ha and Tha are also representative of, respectively, our right and left nostril. Our right nostril stands for Ha, that is sun, and the left nostril stands for Tha, that is moon. And you know that we are always continuously respiring through these two nostrils, sometime from the right, sometime from the left, sometime from the sun, sometime from the moon, and our personality also changes accordingly. Now, personality changes because of the change in the nostril dominance. It is therefore suggested that we must acquire a balance between Ha and Tha. And for the sake of the attainment of the balance between Ha and Tha, it suggests that you practice pranayam. So, in nutshell, if we have to say, we can say that Hatha Yoga is a system of yoga which fundamentally promotes the practice of pranayam. That is what is the Hatha Yoga. So, Hatha Yoga should not simply mean by physical yoga, should not only that is being understood by the common man that Hatha stands for asana and therefore asana is Hatha Yoga. That is also a misunderstanding. Actually, asana only a preparation for Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga starts with respiratory exercises. That is with the practice of pranayam. And here the practice of pranayam is such that it creates a balance between Ha and Tha, and as a result of the balance between Ha and Tha, there is Hatha Yoga, and there you get the highest good. Now there is another very popular understanding of Hatha Yoga that I have just now told you, that union between Jiva and Paramatman, union between Apan and Prana, union between Rajas and Ritas. All these are the concept of Hatha Yoga. Well, Jivatma and Paramatma stands for individual soul and supreme soul. When we say Prana and Apan, you know that in the individual body there are 10 types of vayus that are continuously working in the body, and the these 10 vayus have their special location and function as well. And especially the prana and apan, which are the most important among the 10 vayus, have to work for the sake of the sustenance of our life, as well as they are having their own function. Now, the union between prana and apan, a balance between prana and apan, is necessary to have the yogic goal of Hatha Yoga. In order to understand it, let us try to understand it this way, that you may be knowing that Apana Vayu is located at the anus and Prana Vayu is located at the heart region, and both are functioning from these two places. For anything that is being taken in is the function of prana, and for anything and everything that is thrown out of the body is the function of apana. The balance between these two, what you are taking in and what is being thrown out of the body, there must be a balance. Otherwise, the thing that you are taking in, there are the various toxins that are created inside the body, and if they are not thrown out as a result of the function of the apana vayu, that will create a lot of problem. And that is why a balance between the functioning of the prana and apan is the Hatha Yoga. So also there is the also concept, this balance or union of rajas and retas. This particular concept of rajas and retas is very much influenced from tantric cult. That is, the rajas stands for female energy and retas stands for male energy. And a balance between these two, a balance between the male and female concept, is the Hatha Yoga. One thing that is very important to understand, that this balance between male energy and female energy is not something which is out of your body. The male and female energy both are there inside the body, and one has to strive for acquiring a balance between these two, and that is what is the Hatha Yoga. That is another meaning that is also assigned to it, is the technique related to Vayu. Of course, the practice of Hatha Yoga is a technique related to Vayu and a management of Vayu. You know, this is management of Vayu I am saying because in Hatha Yoga, you may be knowing that respiration is an involuntary action going on in the body throughout since our birth, and will stop only after death or only during death, or its stoppage means death. Now, if we are not clever enough to manage this Vayu, and we are just going on moving and giving this, using or spending this respiration recklessly, it will affect our life. You know, this is very interesting point, that unlike the Vedic concept, I am saying unlike Vedic concept because in Vedic concept we find that the human life has been considered to be 100 years. And this, considering the human life to be of 100 years, we have divided the 4 stages of life, that is known as Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanprastha and Sannyas, assigning 25 years to each life, each stage. You know, Hatha Yoga and Hatha Yogic practitioners and Hatha Yoga authors do not agree with 100 years of life. They believe that the life of a person in this world is having a very definite number of respiration. Every person has his life account, and in his or her life account there are definite number of respiration deposited right in the beginning since his birth. Now it is up to you that whether you are spending it fastly or whether you are spending it slowly or whether you are spending it in a very, very slow manner. Depending on the speed of your expenditure of respiration, your life will depend in the world. It means that you may have seen those who are prone to respire very fast, they have very less life or very short life in the short span of life in the world. And those who have stopped the respiration or able to stop the respiration or take minimum respiration, they have very long life. We usually quote the example of a dog and a tortoise. You know that the dog have very less span of life or very low span of life, short span of life, only because it breathes fast. So in its life account, whatever the number of respiration is given, it consumes very fastly, and that's why its life has become shortened. On the contrary, the tortoise, you may be knowing that it respires very slow. It can live inside the water, and without respiration it can continue for a long time. It is only because of this reason that it is said that a tortoise has got 300 years of life. Well, 300 years of life, it is only because the number of respiration that has been deposited in its account of life has been spent very miserly, very slowly, and this results into increasing the lifespan. Hatha Yoga believes that if you want a longer span of life, for that reason you have to spend the respiration at a very slow rate. What is the usual rate? The usual rate of respiration according to Hatha Yoga is 15 respiration per minute. It's a normal respiration rate. Every person of normal health. When I say normal person, every person, I mean to say every person of normal health consumes respiration at the rate of 15 per minute. But you know that we also change our respiratory rate depending on the type of work we are doing. Not only that, we also change our respiratory rate depending on what type of mental condition we are undergoing. Have you ever experimented, have you ever seen yourself that whenever you are angry, in anger condition, which is a mental condition, you start respiring fast? Why? What is the reason? It is because that mind has got a direct contact or direct relationship with the body, and especially the respiration. And therefore, if you are very, very angry, your respiration becomes fast. And contrary to this, if you are cool, calm, you be somewhere on the seashore, just go on observing the waves of sea. Try to be concentrated on that. You will find that after 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, your respiration has gone down. The respiration which is going on at the rate of 15 per minute has gone down to 10 per minute. It can go even less. It means that if your mind is cool, calm, undoubtedly your respiration will also be. So try to understand it very clearly that respiratory management is not only at the level of only the respiration, it also involves the concept of mind. That is why Hatha Yoga has been wrongly understood only that it is a theory or it is a practice which teaches us to control the respiration. No, it is a theory, it is a practice which teaches us to control the mind and also to control the respiration. Both the things must complement each other. If they are not ready to complement, undoubtedly your practice will not give you proper result. Along with that, as I have told you that in this different time of or different types of work that we are doing, we are actually doing the work at the normal rate, normal intensity of our breathing from the nostril to the distance of air that is called intensity of the breathing. This is, according to yoga text, is 1/8 of individual's height of the body. And individual's height of the body is 96 fingers. Every person of the world is of 96 fingers, but do not try to measure others' height from your own finger. You can measure your height from your finger. Everybody is of 96 fingers from one's own finger. Nobody else can measure others' height. Now, considering the 96 fingers of individual's height, the 1/8 is the normal intensity of the air that is thrown out of the nostril and up to this point. That is called 12 finger. And when we say 12 finger, it means that this 4, add this 4, add this 4. You can imagine this is the usual distance that a person respires. But you know that in different type of work, we increase the distance either when we are eating or when we are sleeping or when we are walking, when we are running, when we are singing, when we are speaking. In all different times, we are changing the intensity of the respiration. And the text says that the maximum respiration or maximum intensity of the respiration that is there is during the copulation. And therefore it says that you have to withdraw from the copulation, from the sexual activity. And you might have seen that almost every text of yoga says follow brahmacharya. This is also because that has adverse effect on the health, because of the intensity of the exhalation that is going beyond 36 fingers. Now coming to the next. There are various definitions that I have said to you, and I have given you all these things. Conclusion of the definition is, this is very interesting, that it works first of all on the health, then second, it works upon the flexibility of the body. In the third stage, it works upon the mental regulation or mental calmness. And fourth stage, it works upon for the highest goal. So, it is a very gradual development. There are many persons who are interested in Hatha Yoga only for the physical purpose, only for the therapeutic purpose. They come to Hatha Yoga, get relief from the pain or from the suffering, and then leave the Hatha Yoga. There are persons who come to Hatha Yoga maybe for the sake of the removal of the disease, but they continue for the sake of the relaxation and for the sake of the flexibility of the body that is availed through the practice. When they find that, okay, flexibility is so nice, then they go further and they remain in Hatha Yoga for the sake of the attainment of coolness and calmness of the mind. And when they attain this coolness and calmness of the mind, a mental relaxation, a mental coolness, then they proceed on to the highest goal, where the individual self can become united with the Supreme Self. Now, what is how to attain this concept of flexibility, removal of disease, and all these things? The various practices contribute towards it. The various practices that are available in Hatha Yoga are starting with the asana. They also talk about the mitahar. They talk about the nadi shodhan pranayam. They talk about the 6 cleansing processes. They talk about the kumbhaka. They talk about the bandhas, mudras, kundalini arousal, and so on. If you are going on practicing pranayam, you will find this particular concept very much there. Now I am proceeding on to how it has come to the world. For the sake of the concept of the Hatha Yogic history, there are two types of the theory. One theory is called traditional theory and the other is the modern. Those who are having the traditional theory, they are just believing in whatever is written in the text and they take it as final. But those who are from the modern point of view, they do not accept whatever is written in the text only, but they try to find out rational understanding and scientific understanding of each and every aspect of claim that we find in Hatha Yogic text. That let us try to understand first of all the Hatha Yoga from traditional point of view. What is this traditional point of view? You know that Hatha Yoga is said to be first taught by Lord Shiva. Now, how old is Lord Shiva? It is very difficult to say. We cannot say how old it is. According to the Indian faith, he was right from the beginning. And it so happened one day that Mata Parvati, the wife consort of Lord Shiva, she was very much disturbed and distressed by the pain that people were suffering on the earth. And she asked her husband, is there any way that they can be free from their suffering? Lord Shiva said, yes, there is, but I will tell you some other time. One day, along with Parvati, Lord Shiva went out, and while finding a solitary place, a lonely place where the people are not coming much, are not at all coming, nobody is there, nobody is listening to their discussion and talk, he sat on a stone on the bank of a river and started speaking about the yoga and especially the Hatha Yoga. When he started talking about the Hatha Yoga, he said that the practice of Hatha Yoga is comprising of all these practices that I have just now told you about, the asana, pranayam, all these kumbhaka, mudras, everything he explained, what are the asanas, what are the kumbhakas, what are the mudras and what are the kundalini, and each and every aspect had been made clear by him. You know that it was a bank of a river, and in that river there was a fish. And fish also was listening to whatever Lord Shiva was telling to Parvati. Mata Parvati somehow came to know that there is something on the water, and she started saying that who is in the water, come out. Otherwise, I will give curse. But listening to this, Lord Shiva was also very angry and he said, come out, otherwise I will give you curse. Then that fish came out. You know, because of the listening to all the aspects of yoga that was explained by Lord Shiva to Mata Parvati, that fish had become of half human body and half fish body. Because of the power of the yoga that he had learned from Lord Shiva directly, he has been transformed from fish to human being. He begged apology to Lord Shiva and said that since you were speaking the thing and you were speaking about the yoga, I have heard it with very keen mind, but I was trying to listen it completely. Somehow my presence was detected and I could not listen to complete. So my only half body could become of human body, but half body remain of fish. First of all, Lord Shiva was very angry and he wanted to curse him, but you know that Mata Parvati was very kind and she is kind herself in all aspects. So she said, no, we should not curse him. If he has heard all the aspects of yoga that you have said to me, it is better that he should be given a sign, a responsibility that whatever he has heard from us, he should go and teach it to the people so that they also become free from their suffering. Lord Shiva was very kind again. He said that, okay, it is listening to Mata Parvati's request and obeying it. He made that fish and half human body person into complete human body, and then he ordered him that you go and give it to all people so that they can also be free from suffering. You know, the same person in Hatha Yoga, we call him Matsyendranath. The Matsyendranath is supposed to be the first expounder of Hatha Yoga, although it is known to you that we consider Gorakhnath to be the first. Whereas, for your information, Gorakhnath was actually the student, disciple of Matsyendranath. But the credit of popularizing Hatha Yoga and giving it a very systematic order of learning and practicing all things goes to Gorakhnath, and Gorakhnath, the whole lore of Hatha Yoga, especially of the Nath tradition, the credit of popularizing it to the people goes to Gorakhnath. This is how we feel that the Hatha Yogic tradition is coming to us from the time immemorial. We don't know the time from when Lord Shiva gave it to Parvati. We cannot take it back to 3000 years BC or 5000 years BC or whatever it may be. It is only because we are believing in Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is the first expounder of Hatha Yoga. From him Matsyendranath had listened. So as the first expounder of Hatha Yoga, Lord Shiva was there, and therefore Hatha Yoga is as old as Lord Shiva himself. But this is all that is there in the traditional view. Modern view do not agree with this concept. Modern view thinks that no, unless we have some concrete evidence to determine the time of certain thing, we cannot accept it blindly simply because it is written in the text. People write in hyper statement, and these hyper statement cannot be accepted unless it is also supplemented and also supported by some evidences. In India, Hatha Yoga originated in India. So we try to find out its traces, its evidences of its origin in India. According to the Indian belief, that our culture, our civilization is as old as Indus Valley civilization. We believe that our civilization started with the Indus Valley civilization, and the Indus Valley civilization, the time date goes back to 3000 BC, and 3000 BC means from now 5000 years. So we try to find out whether the 3000 BC is sufficient to understand, and for that reason we try to find out whether we have any sculpture that can supplement or that can give a very strong belief that yes, there was the Hatha Yogic traces in the Indus Valley civilization. I would like to show you one picture from This is from, you may be knowing by seeing his two horns and the way the legs are arranged and the hands are on the knees. This particular picture is supposed to be found in Indus Valley Civilization sculpture, which is of 2350 to 2000 BC. You can imagine this particular picture, we call it the picture of Pashupati Nath. The picture of Lord Shiva, the another name of Lord Shiva was also Pashupati Nath. And the position of legs, which is very interesting and very important from the viewpoint of yoga, is that this particular position is identified or known as Bhadrasana. And the description of this particular position is available in Hatha Yoga Pradipika under the term Bhadrasana. Therefore, it is said that, or we can say that, the practice of some asana was popular during the time of Indus Valley Civilization, and we find this sculpture depicting the pose of asana, confirming that the aspect of Hatha Yogic practices were there available, present in the sculptures of Indus Valley. And from this point of view, we can say that the practice of Hatha Yoga is as old as Indus Valley Civilization. So the upper time limit that goes to it is 5000 BC. Now so far, if you come down, you find that we find the traces of the yoga as such in the Jainism and Buddhism. It is said in the 2nd century book on Buddhism in Buddha Charita. Buddha Charita, it is written there that Yadana Siddhate Bodhi Hatha Yogena Sadhayet. If you are unable to obtain enlightenment, then with the practice of Hatha Yoga, try to obtain it. It means that Hatha Yogic practices were supposed to be a very powerful practice for the sake of the attainment of enlightenment. Even during the 2nd century AD, and what we find in the 2nd century AD, it must be a very old tradition that has been referred in the 2nd century AD book. This suggests that this concept must be a very old. As soon as the Buddha was enlightened and he was describing and giving and preaching the Buddhist path, he also must have given the theory of Hatha Yogic practices. Well, we find in Jainism also, and in Jainism we find the different names of asanas. Just as the names of asanas that he has said about was the Paryankasana, Ardha Paryankasana, Virasana, Swastikasana, Samasana. We find the name of 5 asanas, and from this we can say that the practice of various asanas were popular during the time of Jainism, and these various names of asanas also confirm that they must be a practitioner of Hatha Yoga as well, because the number of asanas or names of asanas are unique in Hatha Yoga, and we do not find it any other way. This is further confirmed that when we see the books on Hatha Yoga, there are 5 important books which we must read and must understand to understand that what is in Hatha Yoga. And these 5 books are, first of all, the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. It is said to be authored by Guru Gorakshnath. The second is the Goraksha Shatkam. It is also authored by Gorakshnath. The third is Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and Hatha Yoga Pradipika was written by Swatmaram, and this is also a very, very important and most important text on Hatha Yoga in the modern times. The fourth book is Gyan Shankar Sahay, which talks about various asanas and various pranayamas and a complete Hatha Yoga manual, and finally we can see the book known as Hatha Yoga, known as Shiva Sangita. If we read all these books, we will find a lot of information given in the text. I end it here, and I request you that these are very few examples and the things that I have given to you and shared with you. There are a lot of things that can be said about on Hatha Yoga. Thank you very much. Ending with one Om. Om. Thank you very much.